Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for waiting. We will now like to start the panel discussion under the theme of potentials of the blockchain technology in super information society. It is now time for us to start the panel discussion.
では早速ではございますが、本セッションご出演のパネリ
Without
スト
further
の皆
ado,
様
I
か
would
ら
like
ご紹介
to
を申し上げます。
introduce the panelists
日
for
本
this
電気
session.
通信システムビジネス開発本部
NEC Communication
エグゼクティ
Systems
ブエキスパー
Executive
ト
Expert
鈴木
of
直人
Business
さん
Development Division,
よろしくお願いいたします
Mr. Naoto Suzuki.
続いてミライトフロンティアサービス推
From
進本
Mirait
部
Inc. Frontier
Tokuhashi
Service
Yusuke-san.
Headquarters, Mr. Yusuke Tokuhashi.
続きまして博報堂 DY メディアパートナ
From
ーズ
Hakuhodo
ビジネス
DY
イノベ
Media
ーション局
Partners,
高橋信
Business
之様
Innovation Bureau, Mr. Takahashi Nobuyuki.
アーリーワークス取締役 CTO
From
山本
Early
博
Works
樹様
CTO, Mr. Hiroki Yamamoto.
そして本セッションのモデレーターを務めをいただきます
The
のは
moderator
アーリーワ
of
ー
this
クス代
session
表取締役
is
小林聡さんで
CEO
ご
of
ざい
Early
ます。
Works, Mr. Satoshi Kobayashi.
では早速でございますが、ここからの進行、小林様にお任せを
Without
させてい
further
ただき
ado, I
ま
would
す。
like to pass the
では
microphone over to
よろし
Mr.
くお願いいたし
Kobayashi.
ます。
はい、ありがとうございます。本日は
Thank you very much for the kind introduction.
ありがとうございます。
And thank you very much for finding time out of your busy schedules today. I am Satoshi Kobayashi, CEO of Early Works, and I'll be serving as the moderator today.
情報化社会におけるブロックチェーン技術の可能性ということで、
Potentials of blockchain technology in super information society. That's the title of this session.
様と我々ベ
And
ンチャーの会社が考える近い将来 AI
Major companies and startup companies like ourselves, what do we think of the introduction of a super information society such as blockchain, and how does that tie with business solutions, and how does blockchain is utilized in that context? We would like to hold a panel discussion on this topic. AI, IoT, 5G, these are technologies that are being introduced and put into use. Smart city, digital twin are concepts that are on the rise. In the meantime, there is no eye-catching service that has been commercialized from major companies and from startup companies like ourselves. How do we view the current situation? This is what I would like to have a discussions on. As a topic of discussion, perhaps NEC, I think it was last month, that you issued a sort of a white paper, and combined with what the central government is doing, you talked about some aspects of smart cities. Suzuki-san? Yes? That's not exactly right. It's the cabinet office. And NEC is taking a role in that. So that needs to be corrected. Kobayashi-san, you earlier talked about the super information society. And I want to refer back to that topic. End of June, there was a Nikkei forum. It was hosted by Nikkei, and it talked about the Japanese-style smart city architecture. It was a forum, and I was observing in the audience, and my impression was that it really is an entry point of what we could call a super information society. And listening to the discussions was everything is going to be digitalized, and the data will be successfully utilized. And once things are turned into data, it's digitalized, and therefore you could use it in various manner. Service, verification, and connections need to be sought. And thinking from that perspective, and I was listening to the discussion, and the people who were on stage used the word or referred to the word blockchain multiple times as a keyword. And I had the impression that there might be people out there thinking about similar things as myself, and that this could be used within the context of smart cities. And with this impression in mind, I studied a little bit more about smart cities. And end of July, as you referred to earlier, on the homepage of Cabinet Office, there was a white paper architecture on smart cities that NEC as a company was involved in. And I read this white paper. Naturally, since I am slightly involved in blockchain, I turned the pages and read through, wondering whether it will be mentioning blockchain, but actually there was no mentioning of blockchain. And I had the impression that when things are to be developed within smart cities, blockchain will be referred to. And with such expectation in mind, I had thought that within the architecture, there's a managing aspect and operating system aspect. There are two aspects, and there's infrastructure, service that are also separated. And it was a question of how blockchain will be involved, successfully taken into account in that context. And the digital twin was also taken up of how to create and develop a digitalized space and how to have infrastructure and make good use of data. I had an impression that we need to be thinking in that regard. Well, blockchain is something that the people want to bring up on the forefront in the stage, become a main character. Well, I don't agree with that because blockchain cannot operate on its own. It's, I think, part of the foundation. That's my impression. It needs to have a good collaboration and connection with other information, other data, and so forth. I agree with you. The digital twin aspect. It's about gathering information and creating a digital space. And to be very honest with you, I think Mirai is more advanced and more experienced in that regard. So I want to ask his opinion. Tokachi-san, please. Well, Mirai, from decades ago, we've been connecting lines for telephones and developing base stations around Japan. So we have been involved in the development of and installations of real infrastructure. And as Suzuki-san mentioned, a digital twin, this is something that we are focusing a lot these days. The digital space and real infrastructure that we have been involved in, that we have track record in, there is a very close connection of when talking about digital infrastructure. There's data connectivity that could be managed, that could lead to new value creation. And at Mirai, we don't have actual use cases. This is still something that we are working on as part of our new business. But blockchain is a technology that we are focusing a lot. What kind of use cases will come out? We are monitoring that very closely. Well, at Mirai, in terms of creating digital space, there are many companies that provide VRs, XRs, and ARs. There's a virtual Shibuya, for example, that is quite a hype these days. Do you have a technology capability of realizing virtually? Well, Mirai has been engaged in infrastructure development. So we've been using Tengun data, which scans a real space and creating a 3D virtual space. Infrastructure is our strength. And so a higher layer of service layer and application layer, that's, I think, an area that is well covered by Hakuhodo. Tengun data, you get that? And do you Penguin data? Where could that be? Is it like the factory? Well, it could be anywhere. You would scan using laser, and the laser will span 360 degrees. And depending on the distance of the laser, it would recognize the space, and that will be realized. And so, as business, if you think of monetization, the exit, how far is Tengun data available? Just by scanning doesn't make it available for use. Is it used of changing the location of things, of objects?
So 3D space, in that space, simulations are conducted and to allow things to have value. That is what would make it possible for monetization. The first point, in the real space that will be transformed into 3D space, point data as well as our technologies could be utilized. That is the first step. B2B, virtual space provision. Rather than B2C, it's more closer to B2B. That is the type of monetization that you're thinking of? B2B domain is where Mirai is strong. So realistically, we will be starting from B2B. Now, in the B2C area, monetization, Hakuhodo is doing community business and services utilizing blockchain, trend point data, enabled solutions. Any good ideas? Hakuhodo DY Media Partners, I am involved in developing new business using blockchain. So 2C as well as 2B, what can be done is what I'm thinking about. Digital twin times blockchain, what can be done? VR and in digital space, another digital city could be created using trend point data. Something that is very close to real world, digital space could be created. And by using blockchain, what can be done? In digital real estate, I think you can create a system of getting rent. Token economy? Yes. So blockchain is not the main player here, but that is going to be infrastructure. So the ownership of digital real estate is owned by me. And in that real estate, Kobayashi-san, you are the tenant and you pay rent every month. But because I'm the owner, I will have the rights in an immutable way. I think blockchain will be used as infrastructure in that kind of an arrangement. That's interesting. So this whole Kureido Muromachi, well, trend point data would be captured and either on the web or a VR or XR. Let's say that you organize an event or put up a shop. So separate from the real physical world, a different business model, audience business model could be created for monetization. How do you protect that money? Rather than based on the current database, blockchain could be used to tie the rights. That's more realistic and convenient and faster. If you're doing this B2B, there are existing rules. So when you want to use blockchain, what would be the legal implications? What are existing rules? Implementation could be delayed and monetization would be delayed. But in the digital world, everything is done in the digital world. Then there are no rules. So you can make new decisions. So the monetization goal could be easily and faster reached. So it could be implemented in a B2B fashion. That will be faster. So in terms of what we discussed, elections can be done in blockchain. That's something that is being discussed. So real election, there's the election committee that you have to show your ID to make a vote, to make sure that there are no fraud, but that could be replaced by blockchain. So in digital election, blockchain can be used. And that is now, if that is realized and recognized, then that could be implemented. So where everything can be done digital, blockchain could be implemented. That is a faster way. That is right. Individual level, a person can prove that that person exists there only, but family register and resident card, driving license, that are approved by the authority. Such ID exists in the real world, but in digital world, replicating mail addresses and telephone numbers in the digital world, Satoshi Kobayashi could be created by tenfold. That's easy. But with digital ID on the blockchain, voting could be implemented. Then this person, both in the digital world as well as in the physical world, there's only one person, and that vote can be counted as one vote that can be measured in the digital world. So you don't have to scribble things on a piece of paper and open it up for counting. It's very easy. So in the digital world, demonstration tests could be conducted to make sure that it is usable. So in the 2B as well as 2C environments, that could be connected. That would be a clean way of doing it. There's another thing. In the trend point data, how is it going to be used? I think we discussed this in the pre-meeting. So I was thinking how it will be used. Let's say that you organize a digital event, and VR and blockchain and IoT, how I organize my thoughts around this super information society, the internet and 5G. With such evolution, many people can be connected to a digital event very quickly. When that happens, unlike the real world, there is something that could be lost. Coincidence or accidents could be lost. If you participate in an outdoor festival, let's say that in venue A, you have your favorite artist, but if there is a lot of excitement in venue B, you go and listen to that music and you make such findings. That's the fun of it. But in a digital event, you only go to that event to look at that content. So there's not going to be any coincidence. But in order to complement that, there is VR. So even if you go to venue A, you can also look at venue B to complement that coincidence factor. So VR and 5G, if many people exist in the same venue, there is something missing. And what is missing is continuity. And to complement that and supplement that, the technology is blockchain. That outdoor festival, if you found a favorite artist, you want to go there again, and there's connectivity of venues. In the current VR venues, it's dots and points. You have a campaign, and you can never go back to that place. So that place of your memory does not exist today. But if you inscribe that on the blockchain, people can have their memories. So it's separated. Even if you prepare the same venue, this is the same venue as the one that was used in the past, but there are no certification. So in a totally different digital space, you say that it's the same venue, but in terms of history, it's separated and isolated. There is no continuity of history. So giving history to 5G is what blockchain can do. So trend point data, by using it in blockchain, it could be trend line data. Tokuhashi-san, what do you think about the idea of transforming trend point data to trend line data in terms of infrastructure? I think it's a very interesting idea. To be, when we think about services to companies, we want to try to eliminate coincidence or contingencies as much as possible. But in B2B, such a coincidence factor and timing could be important so that you can work well with that company concerned. So that coincidence, making sales online or digitalization of business, if there could be that coincidence factor to be added, But still, there has to be minutes of the meeting, the situation, and transaction history. Legal aspects will be secured, but if there could be that coincidence factor, that is something that I would like to hope for and expect. That is true. In the current database, you write over it, and the past data that you have written, you can take logs, but you need to design for it and to complement that and store that. So you need a very large database that will be needed.
But in the case of blockchain, you can provide a different solution, a new solution, can be seen from a different perspective. Instead of cutting off points and points, but to create a history and make it smoother, should I say, instead of making it a 0, 1, 1 and 0, but digitally be able to adjust seamlessly and smoothly where history is connected. That, I think, could be created through blockchain, and that's the interesting part of it, and also the role of blockchain, in my view. And talking about data, when blockchain is created, we talk about the security being high, and yet there's the Mt. Gox issue problem that occurred, and also the same could be said with CoinCheck. We hear these news topics that come out. Technically speaking, why did those incidents happen? And the blockchains that are to be provided to enterprises going forward, whether that problem is addressed or not is a great concern. I want to invite Yamamoto-san to speak on that. What do you think? My answer is I don't know where to start, but one thing I can say is that Mt. Gox or CoinCheck, this was the case where blockchain is utilized, but separate from blockchain, for general users, they had a centralized data server. And this centralized data server was attacked. So it was not that they were using blockchain alone, but they had a blockchain aspect, but also the database, and the database was attacked. Right. Most of the products that use existing products tend to have web services to provide services, and this web service itself could be a target for attacks. How should I say it? Giving the impression that using blockchain as part of it makes it safe. So there's a vulnerability of a web page and pages where client users would need to have a blockchain aspect to it. Yes. Measures need to be taken, you mean? Well, how will those aspects will be built? That leads to different level of security. I see. So Hyperledger Public or Ethereum, which are blockchains that are generally available, companies that are handling these blockchains, what are their thinkings and who should they be tying up with in order to address those problems? Isn't it Earlyworks? Well, that's what I was expecting. I wasn't able to say that quick enough because of noise. Well, let's say a new business development division of a major companies would have multiple options using Hyperledger or Ethereum. They could build it in-house or use blockchain companies like ourselves, Earlyworks. That's one way. But if you tie up with Earlyworks, is this addressable? Is this going to be addressed? Well, in our case, we can cover everything from back end to front end, and we have GLS, which is our own blockchain technology, and there's breadth of things that you can do by adopting GLS. So blockchain could be secured by using blockchain, but areas in which your clients or users will get involved, you need some ideas, but you have some ideas of how to address that, Yamamoto-san? Yes, I can come up with various ideas. I see. Thank you for that. The security of blockchain, it could be a source of concern. In the meantime, how should I say it? If security is addressed, will major companies be jumping onto that idea? No. Proof of concept has to be done. There are a number of POCs. In February, March this year, Blockchain Lab was announced by Toyota, and they've announced on various initiatives that they'll be implementing, but it doesn't lead to commercialization. Major companies are involving in IoT or blockchains or new technologies. What could become an impediment for large enterprises? Anyone or Suzuki-san? What could become an impediment? Well, that is very difficult to answer. If we use the word blockchain, it would be taken as a trendy word, but is it really usable when it is put into practice? That's a question that is often asked. What people often say, and I speak with a lot of different people with different background, and they say it doesn't have to be blockchain. Existing technologies could be used instead. And that's true because we're talking about software, but if it's database, there are certain database that is good at the communication or layering. They have different characteristics. If blockchain is regarded as one type of database, it's operating in an area that is difficult to understand. And so something that what the user is trying to achieve should match with what blockchain has to offer. Yes, I have a good experience in that kind of area. Blockchain is a ledger technology, so if it's going to be used as a database, existing database will do. What's the difference with the database that we have? And what I tend to explain is use the analogy of a car. For example, we had gasoline vehicles, and people who ride on cars and go over long distances, the gasoline vehicles is good enough. But when EVs or hybrid vehicles came out, the use is the same, application or use case is the same, but the value that customers ask is different. For EVs, it's eco, and HVs, it's less expensive in terms of gasoline payment and so forth. And so the value that people attach is very different, and hybrid vehicles are selling very strongly. So what is it that blockchains create? And people could choose the option of database or could choose the option of blockchain. And in the case of Suzuki-san, once that is successfully communicated to people within your company, do you think it's easier, makes it easier to build blockchains? Well, yes. The big difference between blockchain and database is whether data could be deleted or not. That, I think, is an absolute difference between the two. You can only write in the case of blockchain, but in the database, you can delete. That's a major difference. And that's what I say when I explain. But there are people who understand, but there are also those who don't. And when it comes to privacy information protection, data needs to be deleted. That is, then some people say that that's not usable, but we can get a track record. The blockchain and the raw data could be handled on the database. So that's one way of using database and blockchain. And coming back to the point I mentioned earlier, we can't provide various services by only resorting to blockchain, especially for non-financial business. That, I think, is quite evident. Takahashi-san, do you have anything that you want to mention on this? Being able to delete privacy information was mentioned by Suzuki-san, but in the case of virtual currency, by putting in data into a particular address, it could be used as sort of as a trash can so that people cannot tamper it. But in the case of personal information, you need to provide a status and so forth. But if there is data within the blockchain, like a black hole where nobody can touch, the personal information cannot be tampered by anyone. This can be proven technically, I think. But from an operational perspective, whether that will be in compliance with the existing laws and regulations, this is actually something that we need to present to the organizers of this event, like JFSA.
What can be done technically? There are many things. We want to do this and that, many things. But every time, what we get stuck with is rights and legal aspects. Those could be obstacles. Smart city concepts. Business is put at the forefront and change the law afterwards. That is what the government is trying to do. So in this team, these members will be quite active in that space. So people in government, please continue to give us your support. Thank you. Now, security is okay, and there are hurdles, but after we overcome them, many companies are exploring business opportunities, DX, digital transformation in that context, or digital twin, and smart city in such contexts, making use of blockchain. What are practical measures and services? They must be progressing at different companies. Suzuki-san and ourselves, there's something that we are working together. The case of Asahi. Beverage manufacturer Asahi is working on a blockchain solution. Vending machines, wallets, and mobile phones, personal cards, they are needed to make a purchase. So wallet is now on the digital area like LINE Pay and PayPay. But to open that, a key is needed, such as 3F and Passmo and mobile phones. But normally it's best if you are able to make a purchase without carrying anything, regardless of whether it's a vending machine or convenience store or other shops. Vending machines are very smart. There's the physical existence and there is the infrastructure, so you can attach a camera quite easily. NEC has facial recognition technology, so facial recognition and plus additional certification and recognition, so that you don't have to have anything, nor nothing like wallets or mobile phones or cards. You are able to buy a bottle of juice, and that data could be utilized. We're discussing that right now. So Suzuki-san, vending machine solutions, I think you have some ideas. Can you talk about it? Honestly speaking, I want to break down the notion of vending machines. If possible, smart city, digital twin, then in digital space, there could be vending machines in the digital space. How do you use it? I'm thinking. It could be very interesting. It's not the physical area, it's a digital space. Takahashi-san was talking about tenants. A company is in a digital space and you're working there. Obviously, there's an office, and there would also be vending machines in that space. How can you do this? If it could be realized, it will be very interesting. In the physical vending machine, you have to go and stand in front of it. But if it is a digital vending machine selling T-shirts, it cannot be done if you want to use it right away, like food. Even if you press the button digitally, you cannot eat it right away. But T-shirts, online shops, if that is placed in a vending machine, if there could be a digital hall and you have a line of vending machines, you can make a purchase there. Yes, it could be. So you press the button, click the button, but that person has made a purchase of this product, linking that with the existing database, that will be very difficult and confusing. In blockchain, in the digital space, various services and various economic spheres could be connected. In the case of a vending machine, whether that person made the purchase, for a user, it has to be secure and safe. How do you protect that? How can it be protected? There's the possibility that the digital space could be a very disorderly place without any order. In the past, there was something like that. In the peer-to-peer context, right? So if you create digital space, and if the government is prepared to prepare the right environment, people who live there must feel secure and safe. In this COVID-19 pandemic, we're having this conference in this fashion, so contactless, without meeting face-to-face, rather than people bundled together in a closed space. I think it's better if we reduce the amount of contact. With the spread of the internet, I think we will be able to do more things, and we have a tailwind blowing. So contactless and non-face-to-face, smart city or digital twin, I think the domain is spreading. And what Suzuki-san was talking about just now, I think it's very good timing right now. Part of smart city is digital twin. That is the image that I have. I think it's easier to be realized. Gamers would understand that very easily. Right. In a gaming context, Hakuhodo has a blockchain product that is now being commercialized. You have such a service. In terms of affinity, what we have created is a blockchain game that is now offered in the world. On blockchains, digital game characters are stored so that the game characters would have asset aspects. And if you go through the dungeon to drop that, you will be able to get such characters, and they can be sold with cryptocurrencies. So you can earn money through such games. That's the feature about the blockchain games. The time you spend on games, the more you use it, you will be able to make money. So there was a lot of excitement at one time. Ethereum and virtual currencies could be used to trade characters. So if that could be converted into Japanese yen to make a purchase, that kind of an arrangement is what we have developed. With cryptocurrencies, you purchase characters and cards. You set up an exchange, and eKYC would be registered and wait for that screening and buying Bitcoin, convert that to Ethereum, and you check the contract address, and send it. And then finally, you can make a purchase, but you can buy it with cash in Japanese yen. Hakuhodo DY Media Partners created that? Yes. It used to be very cumbersome. There was the Governance Brothers, information, accounting, and legal. We overcame that hurdle. What you are aiming at is a platform, so App Store or Google Play, blockchain type game platform. The entry point is something that Hakuhodo is already working on. Is that correct? If you call it a platform, I think you will move away from the context of blockchain because we're talking about decentralized. That's not what we are aiming at. Charging mechanism, protocols. The protocol that we created, of course, there are fees for conversion, but the fees to be reduced, convenient. You don't need to do login or passwords. So UX being superior and with lower fees, it could be replaced. That's right. So to make sure that we will not be replaced, we need to continue to evolve our products. Blockchain-style games, every time it's updated, user access will be concentrated. So in terms of server down, Same with social games. There are announcements. There is going to be blockage in blockchain. Server down plus blockchain being congested. So you may not be able to use the service for a period of time. That is lowering usability. So grid ledger system is very fast. We have created such a blockchain. So as Takahashi said, then there could be a new world of blockchain that becomes visible. Thank you very much. I think it is a very good time here.
So, major companies that are involved with early works, I think that was well represented in our discussions. In terms of our approach to a blockchain, there are various ways, but specialized technology or knowledge or combination, should I say, these are areas in which blockchain is good at. One company focusing on one particular area, instead creating an alliance or consortium and coming up with ideas and sharing servers. That's also an area that blockchain is very good at. So Early Works is one company, NEC, Mirai, and Hakuhodo DY Media Partners are good companies that you may want to consider approaching. I would want to create games using trend point data. Why don't we talk about that in the back room? So while time was limited, thank you very much for joining us. And with this, we'd like to conclude this panel discussion. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much for the panel discussion. Mr. Suzuki-san, Tokuhashi-san, Takahashi-san, Yamamoto-san, and the moderator Kobayashi-san, thank you all for your discussion. And with this, we would like to conclude the panel discussion titled Potentials of Blockchain Technology in Super Information Society. Let me introduce the following session from 12:15 in Hall A, talk session, How Digital Currencies Change Business and Society. In Hall B, there will be a panel discussion titled Future of Blockchain Technology, Views from Startup Companies. Those of you who are joining online, please select the URL of your choice. And please wait a moment until we start the next session. Thank you.